Welcome to The Right Advice with Randy and Amber. I'm Randy.
And I'm Amber. And today we are reviewing episode 3 of the new Willow series on Disney+. So Randy, I think something we discussed earlier is we'd like to first give our initial reaction after finishing it.
All right. So this was mine. At the end of this episode, I'm less interested in watching the next episode than I was when I watched the last episode, episode 2. Episode 2, I felt we're going in the right direction, and I'm curious what they're going to do next. And they nabbed Laura Dannon, and right. I mean, so yeah, that's great, and I was looking forward. I get to the end of this, and I was I'm not looking forward to the next episode at all.
Yeah, neither am I. My first reaction would be that this, number one, is so disconnected from the original in every respect that it's its own entity at this point. I cannot see this as a spin-off. It is literally just its own individual show. It feels nothing like the original. There's nothing there that I really enjoy or feel that makes sense. It felt so illogical in every way. I feel like it's shoddy writing, and I hate to slam some writers out there, but I mean, what were you thinking? Were you thinking? It just seems so disjointed.
I think that some of that blame is going to be the directing as well. I'm not going to blame everything on the writers. So much of this does fall into the purview of the director, so I think we have a little bit of blame on both areas.
I'm going to say it could be just about everybody.
And that's possible.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Do you want to move on to...
My favorite scene.
Favorite scene? Okay.
Okay, so my favorite scene would be in the middle, and of course, as with all of these, there's going to be spoilers. So we're going to talk about specific things that happen in the show. So we always recommend that you watch the episode first and then listen to our review. Otherwise, You're just going to, you're like, oh, I know what happens next because Randy spilled the beans on it. So my favorite scene was in, there's the dark forest, and in the center of this dark forest with all the clouds and the storms is a sunshiny meadow and a cabin, and that was my favorite scene, not because of the sunshine or the shadows, but because there are two characters there that I suspect are fae. I definitely don't feel that they're human. They're something other than human, and I really enjoyed their performances with each other, how they interacted with each other, and how they reacted with Laura Dannon. I enjoyed that. It was interesting, and it moved the plot forward. So we get them pledging their services to Laura Dannon because she is destined to raise an army. And I think that's maybe the first time we've heard that. It's definitely the first time we've heard it in a way that's meaningful to us. It has an impact. So it was delightful to watch them interact.
I would say that although I was interested in that scene, there were so many other things about it that bothered me. And I'm going to go ahead and disagree. I do not feel like it moved the plot forward. Not in a way that was significant enough to have this scene take place. The characters that are introduced are killed off immediately. Maybe they're not dead because they're fae, which it seems pretty obvious that they are, or that there's something. I could not look away from the fact that these women looked like they were mining in the gold rush in California. Like, to me, I just felt like, what era is this taking place? Their clothing and their attitudes, the furniture that they were sitting on was not medieval period at all. It took me so out of the world. I just said, this makes zero sense to me. And they immediately pledged loyalty to her, which I thought was cool. I just wish that everything else around it made sense. But then because they're killed off right away, I thought, why did we have to learn that she's going to raise an army from these interesting characters that are immediately killed off? That was it. They just show up and then they're gone. So for me, it had little value because I suddenly took interest in characters that then were taken away, and it felt like a waste.
I agree with that. I feel that this is a waste, possibly a wasted opportunity. I have a feeling that if they're fae, that they may not be actually dead, that we may see them again. But if they are actually dead, excuse you. If they are actually dead, I feel that we're wasting a great opportunity, because it felt wonderful to think that these were the first two recruits of Elora Danan gathering that army. And so many great adventures are about the hero going through the landscape, and I don't mean literally landscape, I mean the landscape of the story, and they're picking up allies along the way. And by the time you get to the end, you have this force that is able to contend with the big opposition at the end of the story. And this could have been that, and it would have been so interesting to start seeing that collection build. And then, yeah, when they appear to die, that just yanked that possibility out from underneath, and I was very disappointed.
Did you have something else that you wanted to talk about in the categories that you were looking at?
No,
Okay.
not that category. I was going to go to what one thing did they do that I really liked?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Boorman continues to be an interesting character. We continue to get mysteries out of him. He is humorous, and generally he's humorous at the appropriate times. I mean, I could talk as my negative thing about it, how they're funny at the wrong times, but Boorman is funny at the correct times where we need humor. He's a great tool for delivering that light-hearted parts of the story that you need to break up the grim horror aspects that go along with it, and the action aspects. He's good, so he does good on action, and he's funny, and often you'll see that combination. You get the guy who's really a great fighter and he's funny. So in the original movie we had that with Mad Mardigan, funny and he's an action guy, and that's a good combination, and Boorman is moving forward with that.
I would have to agree with Boorman being the best part of the episode. Honestly, everything else I cannot complain enough about. I'd like to touch on
The worst thing?
Yes, the worst thing.
Okay.
The worst thing is got to be that there's no logic in this story. So I wrote down a few things, but let's talk about like Willow's smoke thing that he does. So there's a big fight, and Willow sets off the equivalent of a smoke bomb, and it does nothing. It doesn't help. It helps the bad guys get away with the girl. Like, the smoke clears, and it's like, oh no, you know, they got away with Elora Danan. Okay, so maybe it saved a couple of people, but that wasn't, honestly, it just felt like he set off a bomb of smoke for no reason, and then was surprised that the bad guys got away.
They're gone. We couldn't see them, and they left. Yeah, that was a surprise.
It was a little weird for Willow to kind of know everything that's going on. Like, he always knew about, you know, oh, that's the storm where behind that, I forget what he said, but he said something like, you know, that's a nightmare you don't want to come out of. Okay, so we've gotten the impression that he knows a lot of things. He's traveled and done a lot of things, but nobody respects him still. I don't understand this at all. You know, even now, where he should have been able to have proven that he has done many things, he just doesn't act that way. Even going back to his people and hiding them underground and being this kind of charlatan, it just doesn't feel like it makes sense for him. Okay, so about the Fae people in the forest, later you see Elora Danan suddenly go, I am the greatest sorceress that ever was, and you know, she's confronting the guys who've kidnapped her. And I thought, this surge of courage makes zero sense, especially considering... It comes
out of nowhere. It's
yes.
180 without any explanation why she would all of a sudden have confidence and try to bluff her way, or maybe she doesn't.
I don't think
she's
she
bluffing.
was. I think it was supposed to be genuine, and I think that the writers thought that her encounter in the forest with those two women would be the catalyst for her sudden emergence of confidence, and I did not... That's not what happened. They pledged allegiance to her. She was kind of like, huh? And then they died. So when that kind of, you know, I don't know, I feel like that would do the opposite of give her courage. It just didn't make any logical sense. And then at some point, Prince Graydon, says, it's my fault that she got kidnapped in the first place. And I'm going, what? Why is it your fault? How is it his fault? I don't know. So there were so many things that happened. Oh, I know. One was they almost reclaimed Elora Danan. The smoke thing goes off, and now we know it's a chase. We've got to go and get her. And the urgency was not there. there's like the next scene is they're stopped and they're looking at a wheel like, oh no, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna change a tire? And it's supposed to be this funny moment. And then the two girls go off to the river.
Which, of course, that is a moment where comedy is not appropriate.
Because it takes away from the urgency.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the original film, I keep comparing, but there's the chase scene from the tavern. It's fast paced. There's no pauses. There is comedy in it to let you know that don't worry, everything's going to be okay. But it's not this big block of time going like, okay, we don't know how to change a tire, and we're gonna go and stand by the river and have this conversation where she tells me that, the Jade tells Kit that I've been letting you win all your fights all along. And I thought to myself, is this whole pause in the chase happening because they wanted that information to get out at that point? It was illogical. Totally illogical. It could have been done with something as simple as a quick conversation. They had that fight, the smoke bomb goes off, and Kit goes, says something, I didn't need you to intervene in that. And Jade goes, yes, I did, because, you're not as great a fighter as you think you are. And then the secret can come out with, like, one word. And then somebody, probably Willow, should be like, let's get back on the road. We got to get her before sunset. Sorry, go on.
I am sensing that Amber did not like this episode. I'm just going to take a wild guess about that.
You would be very correct in that. Whatever my rating was before, it has plummeted from its already low start.
So I think that brings us to how we would rate this episode.
I would rate this episode like a 3.
All right. I'm going to give this episode 2.5 heroes on this part
of the
heroic
heroes now.
journey. Well, I am. I
Okay.
wanted a gimmick, and I like that gimmick.
2.5 out of 5 heroes?
Yeah.
So you're giving it a 50%?
A 5 out of 10. Yeah.
I'm giving it a 30%.
So
Failing grade.
I will point out that is the lowest one that I've ranked. So this was the least favorite of the 3 episodes I've seen.
Yeah, most definitely. And I wish I could say that the whole scene with Boorman and Kit going to retrieve the what's it called? The Lux Arcana. It's pretty obvious that's what it is. Okay, first of all, that's a mechanical, science fiction-y type thing. Yeah, maybe it's magical. It's mechanical. Again, not in line with the medieval feel. I just can't get over that. I really can't. That moment, that whole scene was so slow-paced. He's down there in the well, digging this thing out. She's up there chatting. It just felt slow-paced. And they tried to, amp it up with these rats. And I'll say this. The practical effects of the rats could have been a lot better. There was one shot that was good, and it was the shot where the two of them are running down the hall towards the camera, and behind them you see these red eyes, and it looks like they created that practically because of the movement of the red eyes up against the wall and stuff where they didn't show the creatures. But I will say this though, that animatronic rat, you could have done better. And I actually know somebody who does these robotic animatronics in films like in Iron Man and the old Narnia movies. Not the old ones, but the new, the Disney ones. The technology to make that better exists, and they just didn't do it. It looked like they had a stick with a stuffed animal dipped in goo, and they just wiggled it a little bit.
I did like that the rats had 2 heads, and it reminded me of the original movie with the 2-headed dragon.
Okay, yeah.
So I felt that was kind of a nod back at the first movie, and I did enjoy that.
I think that works. I wish they were maybe a little bit bigger or more not bigger, but more, I don't know, a unique take on a were-rat. So the same thing we discussed in the previous discussions was that they always do a unique take. And this was just a large, bald, 2-headed rat. Maybe if it was something that looked not quite like a rat, I don't know. I would have liked that too.
Okay.
It's an ROUS.
It is. Rat of unusual size. So, any ideas on what you think is going to happen moving forward based on this?
I have no idea because we've established there's no logic to this story. We don't even know where they're really going. We know they're trying to cross the Shattered Sea, but where are they on this journey? Are they still way at the beginning, like they haven't even gotten close? It's really vague. They're at Nakmar at the end, and supposedly they could go to the north or the south, but big deal. They're at Nakmar, so they have to go somewhere. They have to go past it, I suppose.
Okay, I want to point out that I've been right on a couple of the things, so
Okay.
now I don't remember what it was. So a couple of things I predicted. Oh, that Kit would come across the bush.
Oh.
That did grow. That Laura Dannon cast her spell when she got angry. The bush did produce and did grow and grow super fast. So Kit did show up, did spot it, did realize that Laura Dannon does have magic and significant magic, and she doesn't tell anyone.
Yeah, she didn't tell anybody, did she?
No. So that could be a key that we are definitely going to see that sort of conflict that I hinted at that could be great, and also an indication that she might be closer to Bev Morda in personality and temperament and not want to rescue Laura Dannon or possibly see her harm. Because, yeah, she's not sharing it. She still is rolling her eyes at possibility of spending any effort to turn a Laura Dannon into a weapon that can defeat evil.
So here's something that I kind of just thought of, and actually it occurred to me while I was watching it. And this again breaks the rules of the first film. Suddenly magic has an expiration. So I know that at one point, or actually 2 points in the film, we saw that when Willow used the wand, Cherlindier's wand, he would have pain in his wrist. But Razel explained for beginners, sometimes there's some pain. So, as in it would go away, you'd be able to do magic and it wouldn't be painful. But now, apparently, you use magic and you can use it up and then you don't have any more. And that's what Willow's doing. So, I suspect and I hope they don't do this, that they're going to have Willow magic himself to death at some point. Or magic himself to the point that he has no magic anymore and it'll be his big sacrifice. And I don't like it because it ties into the first movie. Now, if this was all on its own, I guess that would be okay, but it's breaking rules, and I do not like it.
All right, I'm going to stick with that we're talking about where this could be going. So,
well, I did. I said
okay.
I think it could be that they're going to have him expend all his energy, and that'll be his big sacrifice.
Okay. Boorman gives us more hints about the relationship between him and Mad Mardigan and what was going on. And so Boorman finds what is it called?
Chimerian Cura. Oh, no, the Lux Arcana.
Yeah, that thing. It looks like a big battery. So I'm going to guess that he knows that Mad Mardigan isn't dead, and that between the two of them, they had a plan, and that Mad Mardigan would stay with the Curious because I'll bet Mad Mardigan can wear it, and Boorman cannot, right?
Oh.
And that they agreed that Boorman should go back out and look for the battery. So that's where I would go with the story, because it's got a nice feel to it, right? And
it is better, but then why would he hide it instead of bringing it back to Mad Mardigan? He seems to like Mad Mardigan.
He does.
So why wouldn't he bring the battery back?
Well, we don't know that he's not. As far as we know, he's hiding it from everyone because they know they can't trust anybody. It's too easy to be corrupted. So he may be doing that. And it may play well for him to not be clearly sided, right, with good.
Okay.
That it's questionable. So in that case, I mean, I've played plenty of characters in role-playing games where you play that middle ground, even though you're a good guy, because then you can get access to areas you couldn't otherwise. So I'm betting that that's where that part of the story is going to go.
Okay.
At least that's what I would do, because I think that would be the most interesting.
All right.
All right. Do you have any last things?
Don't think so. I think I've covered, and just head shaking through most of this. So I'm going to try and view it as its own entity, and hopefully I can get through it. But I think I'm done with this being the Willow sequel. So.
Okay, it's something else that's kind of like Willow.
Yeah, not even kind of. Sorry.
All right, until next time, later.